go through all of these women
quickly.
I'm going to try, Joe. Look, I've written a book, Inspiring Women of Battersea, and I'm trying to get plaques up to them one by one because there was none when I started. This is number 14. So I just wanted to point out one or two. This woman actually lived on this road. The first. Are you ready? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, go!
I became obsessed with Elsa because of that film, but it's very interesting to me when people live a nice long time and you see photographs of them and they look like they're three different people. When she was young, she was a dancer. She was the darling of bohemian London. Evelyn Waugh said everyone was in love with Elsa. And she made a silent film with him when she was very, very young called The
Scarlet Woman.
The Scarlet Woman, which gives you some idea of what people thought of her at the time. She ended up marrying Charles Laughton, and they adored each other, and they had a very modern marriage.
She found out he was gay a year after they were married.
Well, yes.
When a policeman knocked on the door and said, "This young man said your husband owes him for services." It was as straightforward as that.
Yes.
Let's be blunt about it.
And the judge was either gay or really dumb, because he's said to Charles Laughton, "You shouldn't be so foolish with your money," you know. But anyway, he confessed to Elsa that he had been having sex with young men on their sofa, and she said, "That's all right, dear. We can get rid of the sofa." And they stayed married for 33 years, so they clearly adored each other. They were on the verge of divorce a few times, but they adored each other. They were family for each other. She came from a very eccentric family. He came from a very cold family, and
very Catholic.
Very Catholic, and she was very atheist. So they sort of took care of each other in that way. He was a huge hit on the West End, and so they ended up going to Hollywood. He was called to Hollywood, she was not, and that was sort of the rest of her life. He kept getting leading roles, and she would have a tiny little part in the film because she was married to him, and sometimes she would steal the film, like Henry VIII. She plays Anne of Cleves. She maybe has 4 minutes in it, and she's brilliant in it. Now, I'm sort of representing the American half of Elsa. She lived more than half her life in the United States, and she and Charles both changed their citizenship, mostly for tax reasons, I believe. And she did come back quite a bit. He came back to do Shakespeare, to do Lear and stuff like that, and she, once again, no parts for Elsa.
And they would have come visiting here. Of course, they'd see Biddy here.
Yeah. And then eventually Biddy moved to Brighton.
Oh, only in 1946.
Yeah. And lived a long time after that. So Elsa had this cabaret. She was bored with being in films, and she went back to her sort of almost music hall roots in London. She used to go to the Clapham Grand.
She did.
And Mary Lloyd was her favorite performer. And Vesta Tilley. So she liked the naughty stuff a little bit, you know. And so she would sing these naughty songs that were written for her by a gentleman named Foreman Brown. And he was part of a throuple, 3 men who lived together and who had a theater called the Turnabout Players. And she went there for 2 weeks, to star for 2 weeks, and she stayed for 12 years. This is all in her book, and it's going to be in Mike's book. I've read Mike's book. It's brilliant. She had a very complicated life, but I will leave you with it. Oh, also, look for my show. I want to do it here. It's called She's Alive, and it's lots of music, and my handsome husband, who's standing there with his sunglasses, plays the piano for me, and it's really fun. I tried, but anyway, even though her life was really strange to some, she said, and in spite of her marriage, in spite of everything, ups and downs, in one of her last interviews, she said, "Of everyone I know, I've had the happiest life." And I think we should all aspire to that. She rolled with the punches.
So, thank you so much.
She did record a couple of LPs.
She did.
The first one was called Songs for
Songs for a Smoke-Filled Room, and the second was Songs for a Shuttered Parlour.
Yeah.
But the best title was one she didn't use. The working title for the first one was Songs My Mother Taught Me Not to Sing. A little bit about Bride of Frankenstein, because that is sort of, you know, the most iconic thing. Elsa was in about 60 films.
Yeah.
You've seen her in more than you think. She's in Mary Poppins. You know, at the start of Mary Poppins,
Yeah.
Katie Nana, who leaves and creates the
Not very nice one.
Yep, that's Elsa. And she's in Bell, Book and Candle, and she's in The Bishop's Wife. She's in tons of stuff. She was broadcasting on BBC Radio within a couple of years of BBC setting up. She was broadcasting on BBC TV before the Second World War. She made one of the last ever silent films from the first ever sound films. It's an incredible career. But Bride of Frankenstein is the iconic one. Sequels were uncommon things in the 1930s. There had been plenty of film series chronicling the adventures of Sherlock Holmes or Tarzan or whoever, but it was rare for a studio to say of a standalone picture, that went well, let's make another one. Frankenstein had been such a box office behemoth that a second film about the monster was a no-brainer. By the end of 1933, The Return of Frankenstein was on Universal's slate, with director James Whale and star Boris Karloff both back on board. Colin Clive signed up to play Henry Frankenstein again, albeit with second billing behind Karloff this time. Dwight Fry, the iconic hunchbacked assistant, was back in a similar role. The part of Dr. Pretorius was written for Claude Rains, but he declined, so it went to Ernest Thesiger, who turned a scheming Machiavellian manipulator into a flamboyant, ghoulish, madder-than-mad scientist, camp as a row of tents. Whale also cast two glorious eccentrics he had enjoyed working with on The Invisible Man, Screeching Harrod and Una O'Connor, and gloriously mustachioed E.E. Clive. May Clark, the original Elizabeth, had facial injuries from a car crash, so teenage Valerie Hobson became the literal Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
But, as the Universal Studios publicity machine had it, who will be the Bride of Frankenstein? Who will dare? Despite studio publicists teasing the press with casting suggestions, including Arletta Duncan, Phyllis Brooks, and even Metropolis's Brigitte Hell, Whale planned from the start to use his old friend, Elsa Lanchester. She was thin but muscular, as dancers usually are, and that dance background gave her the physicality the role required. Facially, she had an unconventional beauty. Elsa wasn't a simpering, soft-focused girl next door, nor a glamorous bombshell, nor a sultry, seductive vamp. She was female rather than feminine, neither conforming to nor reacting against the ideals of the male gaze. She was uncompromising, individual, iconic, unique. She was Elsa Lanchester herself. Above that distinctive face was the tightly wound, bright red hair, a legacy of her father's Irish heritage. Below that face, the long, elegant neck that was somehow muscular and delicate at the same time. This was the hair, face and neck that Doris Zinkeisen had painted, that Jacob Epstein had sculpted, that Yvonne Gregory had photographed. Hollywood didn't know that face yet, but James Whale did, and he could envisage what Universal's makeup supremo, Jack Pierce, could do with it. Pierce spent 3 hours each day crafting Elsa's makeup. This was a time before prefabricated prosthetic pieces. The makeup of scars, stitches and skin tones was built up layer by layer by hand, Jack Pierce's hand, every morning that Elsa was required on set. If Elsa and Boris would be in a shot together, Pierce had to make them both up, putting in a full day's work before shooting had even started, and then being available on set for touch-ups. The hair, that's what made the character. Just as the male monster had his flat-topped head and his neck electrodes, so the bride had her unique look. Hair piled high atop her head, symbolic lightning strikes dancing up each side. It's a visual shorthand for beautiful but deadly eccentric horror femme that has been copied in various forms everywhere from the Munsters to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Pierce started the process by making 4 tiny taut braids on Elsa's crown. To these he attached a wire frame, and then her hair was brushed up around this. The whole glorious structure was inspired by images of Nefertiti. Several museums around the world claimed out Elsa's wig from the movie, all of which are fakes. The white streaks, which were actually light grey, were artificial, and there may have been some additional hair woven in to ensure the wire cage was completely hidden. But most of what was on screen was Elsa's own Barnet. The hair photographed as black and white, hence the usual depiction of the bride ever after as having an extreme salt and pepper hairstyle. In reality, the bride, like Elsa in her later years, was a greying redhead. Thank you very much.